You are here for a webinar on unlocking the value in the software you already own as it pertains to Infor Lawson. And with that, I give you Stephanie and me. All right. So first we're going to talk about RPI. So within the context of this presentation, I think one important thing about RPI is we've been in business for a very long time, and we made our bones with the install base doing process improvement projects. Everything from API automation to requisition approvals to matching, invoice matching. So this is sort of goes back to our roots. A lot of the folks at RPI worked on the client side on trying to make the most out of their system and process improvement projects. And lastly, I just want to point out that from an RPI perspective, we have always viewed Lawson as a tool, right? It's something to support your processes, and we always look at everything as being very process centric. So, I mean, just to give a little context about what we're going to talk about today. Great, and you probably know most of this stuff, so we can just go ahead and get started.
So where to begin? Customers ask us these questions all the time, and it's a really good place to start. A lot of you may be new to the organization, or you've been there for a few years, but you weren't there during the initial implementation. It's ancient history. There's no documentation to go back on. You have no idea why those design decisions were made. There's no training in place. You have all these processes that are working outside of the system, and there's just got to be a better way. So yeah, we hear these questions all the time, and what we're here to talk about is spending more time learning more about what the system's capable of, and working some of those business processes back in to your ERP system.
So we've been advocates for a long time, and I'm sure you guys have as well, of the concept of continuous improvement. And I think that the overall market is turning around more to that. A lot of money gets spent in implementing an ERP. It's surprising, and then it's like set and forget, right? Mm-hmm. Like there's not even 10 grand for training for the rest of time. And if you think about it, an organization should mature with their ERP system and vice versa, and so it should be something that is constantly being worked on. That doesn't mean you need a ton of professional services all the time, but you need to look at how do I make things better, what's not working, what functionality I'm not leveraging, what's coming out, how do I keep up to date, how do I get new players in my organization more familiar with what this has to offer. And we feel that going through an assessment and looking at what you're doing today is a great way to sort of help foment or continue to build that culture of continuous improvement. Mm-hmm. Very important in terms of your long-term success. Very important.
So let's get started by walking through RPI's assessment methodology. Some of our style could be something that other partners also offer, but we find ourselves pretty unique. Mm-hmm. We have a different offering, a lot of what we're going to talk through today. So our methodology starts off with a current state discovery, going on site, doing some interviews and digging into your processes. Then we shift to recommendations, and then help you create a strategic roadmap moving forward. So as I was saying, we really start off with current state discovery. It depends on the size of your organization and your unique issues you may be experiencing that you want us to dig into a little bit further. But this could range from 2 days on site to 5 days on site or more, just again, depending on what your needs are. And they're a mix of functional and business process interviews. So we may do some shadowing sessions, or have all the stakeholders in the same room talking through the specific specific business processes. We really like to have the end users engaged and talking through everything. It's not just at a leadership level. We want to go to the users that are actually utilizing the system and hearing from them. And we're also going through all of your configuration setup and your transactional data. So we're pulling all this information, seeing how you actually perform, seeing if perception really is reality. You keep hearing there's this particular problem that you're experiencing, and then once we peel back the layers, that's not actually what's happening, and it's this other process that's causing you such pain. So there's a lot that happens during that current state discovery. A lot of it we call quick wins. So we could be talking through a particular process on site, and we already know the answer to your problem. It could be a inquiry form that could be looked at, or a report that you could run, or there's just some system functionality that naturally works that way. I mean, you're using this outside system. We're going to deliver that right away while we're on site. Some examples we'll get to a little bit later. And one of the areas that RPI has uncovered this year and really spent a lot of time investing in is our process integration framework, which is basically a catalog of all of the business processes by functional area. And we also have the same structure for our technical overviews as well. So it goes by business process area, goes into that process itself, and there's actually a detail layer level. So during those interview sessions, we have lists of questions. We try not to go down the list and ask them. We try to have a very open conversation, have it just naturally happen. And then, towards the end of that meeting, we go and look through our framework to make sure we captured everything. And I'd say for the most part, we always do. It's nice to just see that all come out through a conversation.
And so these are the processes in your business that would typically be supported by your ERP system, right? And some of them may be more manual intensive than system intensive, and that's how we help them cover opportunities of maybe things you could be doing through the system that you're not today.
Exactly. So some things, in the supply chain world, there could be recalls. And yes, Infor has a solution for that called recall management. A lot of people don't have it yet. Maybe you'll be looking for it in the future, but we're still talking through that business process because, you're pulling those transactions out of the system, you're creating returns. It's a business process that needs to be covered, that you wouldn't want to look through a tunnel and just focus on vendor returns and just focus on, inventory adjustments. You want to talk about the process itself and not the actual screen when you're going through the assessment process. Another area that we talk through is a lot of the different interfaces. So again, a lot of that is happening, naturally in the system, but you have the supporting roles that, are interacting and need to work on those exceptions. So again, we're talking through the business process itself. So these are just some examples on the functional side of some quick wins that we often deliver that get people really excited. And they may seem like pretty straightforward things, but again, if you weren't part of the initial implementation or haven't been too involved or are new at your organization, they may be new to you. It could be as simple as increasing your ACH payments and reducing the amount of paper processing you have for your AP invoices, creating more visibility there. On the supply chain side, oftentimes, and this relates to finance too, matching isn't turned on. They could have had Lawson since version 7 or 8 and it didn't work all that well for them, so they never touched it again. It works so much better now, you should turn it on. But through thorough testing, so we always look at tolerances there and see if things are set up appropriately. Again, some of these things are just very quick to take a look at and turn on to make sure things are running smoothly.
I mean, one thing I'll add is that on occasion, these are things that you might already know or have an inkling towards, and it's a validation. A lot of the value that we bring is we've seen it in many different customers, and so we have some context to say, yes, this is how other people handle this, yes, this is best practice, and to support that initiative.
Exactly. So that's all why we're on site. We go through the current state discovery, we deliver those quick wins. We also put together a presentation for leadership before we go to really consolidate all of that and let the leadership know what we addressed while we were on site and what those next steps are. And then from there, we focus on our observations. We grade by that business process area how you're performing. This is very valuable because it helps us make sure that we understood the full picture while we were on site. Again, we're only there for a couple days and we're digging through your system, so we want to make sure that we captured everything appropriately. This is a great opportunity for us to also let you know what you're doing really well. This isn't just about, pointing out the things that aren't working well. We want to make sure we shine light in the right areas and really help position you to keep growing and improving. So here we're basically just documenting what we experience in each area, also have some supporting analytics where it makes sense. And here's an example of the presentation that can be provided during that current state discovery. So here we just gave a summary of their requisition processing health, which was mostly electronic. So we thought this was great, and they were performing really well. Exactly, very impressive. So we really wanted to make sure we highlighted this for the executives. So after the observations, we move right forward to recommendations. And we feel we do things a lot differently here. Again, keeping the current state review separate from things that you can improve on at a later date. These recommendations are, again, focused by business process area, so they should tie very nicely to your current state and help make the right connections for that area that's going to be responsible for starting to move forward with the change. We group these recommendations by action items that have a relative value, a relative effort, and they all map to initiatives. So there may be 5 different action items that all tie to the same initiative, and then those are tying to your strategic roadmap. So again, these are graded by the value to your organization, and then what the effort will be to actually move forward with that initiative. So this document is pretty detailed. Here we are outlining the top 5 opportunities. And then the recommendations document is pretty large. We try to keep it as detailed as possible to have it be actionable for you and your team to move forward with. We typically find that this document is viewed and it's used by the end users and managers, not necessarily directors or executives. This is where all the action is happening. That we typically have some working sessions to make sure that the team understands what the recommendations are and what action steps would be required to move forward. There's also a status column. Sometimes we're able to move forward on the recommendation before we actually present all of these, so we like to show whether or not something is in progress. And then lastly, this is just an example of what we would propose as the strategic roadmap. During the presentation, we look to get validation, but we'd like to get you started with our interpretation of how we see these initiatives working in to your current state and start taking action. So again, the recommendations document is typically viewed by the manager with the end users to help validate, make sure everything's understood. And we come on site and we do an executive presentation, which summarizes the key topics or recommendations that were in the recommendations document. So it really just focuses in on the areas of the most significant value. So just an example of what that might look like. So in this example, it was supply chain system administration and infrastructure. So here we're focusing, we make sure that we're shining light on what the strengths are of the department or business process, but also pointing out what the pain points are, and then outline the recommendations that all tie to that initiative.
So I'll add that typically this is something we collaborate with the process owners on, and a big part of these assessments, tying it back to creating that culture of continuous improvement, is creating visibility with the executives and stressing the importance of the investment, right? Focusing on the direct cost savings, the resource reallocation towards value-add activities, and any competitive advantages that can be derived, so that it has a higher visibility within the organization as something of importance.
Absolutely. And really, we do a lot of these for procure to pay, so just bringing finance and supply chain together, but 3 suites as well, and it's just really valuable to help the organization communicate in such a way that makes the right connections with those that are making the decisions that roll down to everyone else. And
also control the funds.
Yes, exactly. So here's just a example of the strategic roadmap. So the 3 months would be that low-hanging fruit that your team can start making changes on right away, and then that rolls up from there of more of the long-term projects that you'll need to plan for. So we'll work with your organization to see what's the best fit. There may be some that we think 3 months, but you don't have the resources available, so we want to go ahead and move that to 6 months or a year.
So this to me is actually one of the more valuable pieces, because within an organization there's usually a lot of initiatives that people want to start, right? And so the HCM team wants one thing, payroll wants another, finance is looking at something different, and sometimes it's hard from an executive perspective to have all these things coming at you and to have to choose. So here we're sort of helping the organization coalesce around a plan of let's do this first and this next. And if all the departments support that plan, it's a lot likelier that you'll move there instead of sort of being stuck every year. Everybody proposes the same stuff and doesn't get to move forward. So
exactly, or even just working in silos and not having the right amount of IT support and communication to really make sure that you're making the right kind of progress together as a team, as an organization. So just to bring all that together, these are all the assessment deliverables that we spoke about, tangible things that you can start taking action on. So we have the quick wins while we're on site, the observations document, and the presentation before the presentation is before we leave the discovery. The observations document is in the following weeks. And then once you've validated and say, yep, you got all the observations right, or spend a little bit more time on this, we focus on the recommendations report and then the strategic roadmap. So that all sounds great, right? So how do you build a business case to actually get us to come help you? Step one, we really feel is just gathering all the stakeholders and not just in your main department, really
get support from the other departments.
Exactly. So finance, supply chain, HR, your IT support team, and start talking about what your pain points are now and where you're looking to go within the next year, and focus as an organization on defining what that plan is. So what's that end date that you're hoping to move forward? What are all the things that need to happen before then? It can be a pretty significant undertaking, I'm sure. So why RPI? First is really those of us that are performing these assessments and coming on site and meeting you and your staff. We have industry experience, not just with healthcare, throughout public sector and other industries as well. But I've lived and breathed it in supply chain, a little bit of finance, but we definitely have a lot of experts there. So we've experienced some of your same problems, have really great recommendations and solutions that we've seen work very well, and also have the knowledge and understanding of what's to come to really help make sure that what we're recommending is going to last you, and if it's only going to last you short term, that you have a long-term plan as well. And not only during that discovery, but also looking through all your transactional data and your setup, having those interviews with you. We're really taking the time to understand you and your organization, your unique instance, although you're looking for best practice and want to make sure you're following what the industry is. You're still unique. You have your own unique problems that you need the right solution that's going to fit your organization. And we're not just giving you something cookie cutter. We're making sure that we're talking it all the way through and making sure that these recommendations are going to be actionable and impact you in a way that you can continue to build off of that, and just gain a better understanding of what the system and your business processes are capable of, and investing in your future.
Yeah, there's some things that I think are a part of RPI's identity that dovetail into what makes us unique in doing these. And we always talk about the focus on long-term relationships. Something we've been very successful at. We have a lot of customers we've had for many 15 plus years. And one of the things that one of those customers told me once is, you guys are great because you leave, right? And I think there's a philosophy of empowerment that permeates RPI. People do share information freely, and when we look at our customers, we want our customers to be sophisticated users of the system that can do most on their own, right? And I think that that creates the right type of partnership where we're not just looking to, hey, let's do professional services. Let's build something here where they call us when they really need us and they can do things on their own. Obviously, in this day and age, the Lawson footprint has expanded significantly, and I like to say, man, you got to have at least 50 people just to have expertise across the whole system, and we have lots of niche expertise, things like P-cards and compensation management and a full technical team. We're also this team-based approach we use a lot. We're full-time employees of RPI. We don't go anywhere. We stick around, and 3-4 years down the line, the same people you worked with are available. We also communicate a lot internally, and so we're able to leverage each other's expertise to add value, so that one consultant on site has access to a lot of people. And I think that it all shows in the reputation we built in the market. We've had a lot of successful outcomes, certainly not perfect, but a lot of successful outcomes, and these are some of the drivers behind it, or at least what we believe are the drivers. And lastly, I'll say that a lot of the people that I work with, they're good people. They're nice to work with, and they adapt to different organizational cultures and potentially challenges. And there's always going to be change resistors and all that stuff, and we're happy to help you work through that. So hopefully if you have the opportunity to engage us, you'll be happy and become one of our many references.
So does anyone have any questions? Went through a lot of detail, lots of information, but
I'm sure Bill has a question.
Yeah.
just a moment.
Just right now. Wow.
Let me.
Yeah, of course.
It's a great presentation, by the way. But what size organization do you think an assessment is target? Does it matter the size?
Every size organization. I think the assessment changes a little bit depending on the size, but anybody that is running an ERP should look at what they're failing to get. How to make that a positive. What else they can get out of the system they have, and what initiatives they can do for themselves, and where maybe they have some education gaps that they can bridge. And I don't think it's unique to the Lawson market. That most ERPs, there's a big implementation cycle in the late 90s, early 2000s. So you're about 20 years in. There's a knowledge gap that gets created by that alone, right? It's been several cycles from the people that originally designed, and the software itself has made a lot of improvements.
Absolutely. So these projects are right sized to the organization depending on what exactly you're looking for. There are instances where we do individual assessments. Again, we're looking at the full business process. So even in a just supply chain assessment, there's still some financial components there where we'd bring in a finance consultant. So it really depends on what you're looking for as an organization, but I'd say anyone that's a user of the Infor Lawson ERP system could benefit from performing an optimization assessment.
All right. Thank you very much, Stephanie, and thank you all for attending.